When leadership turns the mirror away, how psychological patterns block change. Dear Amelia Emberhart, how's everything going? I must apologize. Today I need to talk about a topic that is currently on my mind. It might once again be a bit of a stretch for you, but these concepts are important to understand. Excuse me. Grasping the ideas here will serve you well later on, so please bear with me. In the realm of leadership, uncomfortable truths often lurk in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to emerge. They appear when the numbers fall short, when the surveys are unkind, or when candid feedback challenges the stories leaders tell themselves. These moments hold the potential for transformation, yet they are also the breeding ground for subtle psychological defenses. This letter is about those very defenses, the patterns of thinking and reacting that, while once invincible to the leader, can quietly block change and keep entire teams locked in cycles of frustration. When leadership turns the mirror away, how psychological patterns block change. Imagine a senior leader in an organization whose employee net promoter score, eNPS, has just come in low. The survey comments reveal disengagement, frustration, and distrust towards leadership. Instead of taking this as a moment for reflection, the leader notices that most of the survey respondents belong to one specific team. His conclusion: the poor score must be that team's fault. Specifically, he pins it on the team's manager. The leader frames his next steps around taking action against that manager and team rather than exploring how his own leadership, decisions, or culture may have contributed. A few weeks later, the same leader receives direct feedback. Some of the poor results are connected to his habit of not following through on his own proposals and commitments. Rather than acknowledging the underlying issue, his self-management and accountability, he redirects the conversation. What exactly were those commitments? Let us go through them one by one. How can we solve them? The discussion dives into technical details and side problems. The central truth that the leader's repeated follow-up failures have eroded trust never gets confronted. 7 psychological phenomena at play. These behaviors are not random. They are well-documented human tendencies, intensified when status, self-image, or control feels threatened. Self-serving bias. The inclination to interpret successes as the result of one's own skill and failures as the result of external factors. In leadership, this bias preserves a sense of competence and authority, but it also blinds the leader to their own contribution to problems. It is a mental shortcut that keeps discomfort at bay at the cost of learning and accountability. Scapegoating. The act of unfairly attributing blame to an individual or group to shift attention away from broader systemic or personal causes. While it may reduce immediate pressure on the leader, it often fractures trust, deepens divisions, and prevents the real sources of dysfunction from being addressed. External locus of control. A mindset that frames outcomes as the result of luck, circumstance, or the actions of others, rather than personal choices. Leaders with this orientation may unconsciously absolve themselves of responsibility, convincing themselves that change is outside their influence. thereby avoiding the difficult work or personal or systemic reform. Deflection topic derailment. A conversational maneuver that steers dialogue away from an uncomfortable truth toward a less threatening topic. This technique keeps the leader's self-image intact but also halts the genuine problem solving, leaving root causes untouched. Bike shedding, Parkinson's law of triviality. The tendency to spend disproportionate time on small, less critical details while avoiding the high-stakes core issues. In leadership contexts, it offers the illusion of productivity, yet it often functions as a refuge from the vulnerability of addressing the most important challenges. Rationalization to reduce cognitive dissonance. When reality clashes with a leader's self-image, for example, I am reliable versus I fail to follow through, the mind generates justifications or alternate explanations to reduce psychological discomfort. This reduces the need for behavioral change while preserving the illusion of consistency. Impression management. A strategic effort to control how one is perceived by others, often through selective communication or symbolic gestures. In leadership, this can manifest as performing problem-solving behaviors that appear proactive but do not require deep accountability or change. How they show up here. In the eNPS scenario, the leader's rapid move to blame the underperforming team reveals self-serving bias, scapegoating, and an external locus of control. Rather than interpreting the score as a shared leadership challenge, he frames it as the team's personal failure, effectively removing the need for his own reflection or cultural improvement. In the follow-through feedback scenario, the leader's pivot into debating specific proposals is a blend of deflection and bike shedding. By focusing on minor operational details, he sidesteps the larger issue, a consistent pattern of poor self-management. The very act of breaking the problem into smaller, less threatening parts can serve as a rationalization. I am working on the real issues. And impression management. See how engaged I am in solving this. And while preserving status in the eyes of others. The cost we pay. When these patterns go unrecognized, leaders may unknowingly erode trust, block learning, and damage organizational culture. Over time, the gap between a leader's self-perception and their actual impact widens. Teams begin to learn that feedback is not a catalyst for change, but a trigger for blame, redirection, or surface-level fixes. The antidote is deliberate self-awareness. Recognizing these psychological traps enables leaders to pause, acknowledge their role in challenges, and direct energy toward genuine improvement rather than image maintenance. That is the fertile ground where trust grows, and where eNPS scores begin to reflect not just engagement but belief in leadership itself. For you, Amelia, the lesson here is simple but demanding. When confronted with uncomfortable feedback, whether in work, study, or personal relationships, treat it as first as a mirror, not a weapon. Resist the urge to explain, justify, or divert. Instead, ask yourself, What part of this is mine to own? That single question changes the posture from defense to discovery. Over time, this habit builds both resilience and credibility. People come to trust that your words and actions align, and that you can face hard truths without turning away. This is your moment. Take command and show us the path.